The chilling words of W.B. Yeats echo not just in troubled chambers, but across the very foundations of American democracy. Things fall apart, the center cannot hold, mere anarchy is loosed upon the world. This is not mere poetry, it is a critical warning. From my vantage point in Switzerland, a nation where democracy is a daily, tangible practice, the United States appears to be teetering, its democratic core eroding, morphing into what can only be described as a cosmetic democracy. On the surface, the rituals persist. Elections are held, debates unfold. Yet, this veneer hides a dangerous reality. Beneath the facade, the mechanisms of democracy are being systematically undermined, manipulated, and hollowed out. The tactics employed bear an alarming resemblance to those used by history's most notorious authoritarians. This is not a drill. It is a critical juncture. This narrative serves as an urgent alarm. We must examine the patterns of authoritarian rule, not as distant history, but as a present danger. Figures like Hitler, Stalin, Mussolini, Putin, Kim Jong-un, Idi Amin, Robert Mugabe, Bashar al-Assad, Jair Bolsonaro, and Yoweri Museveni offer stark, terrifying lessons. Their common strategies provide a critical lens through which to analyze recent developments in American politics, particularly under Donald Trump. This is a call to vigilance, a demand for action. Across history, the path to authoritarianism is paved with crisis and division. Adolf Hitler seized power amidst the chaos of post-World War I Germany and the Great Depression. He exploited national humiliation and economic despair, using fiery rhetoric and propaganda to scapegoat minorities and promise a return to greatness. Appointed chancellor in 1933, Hitler swiftly dismantled democracy. He used the Reichstag fire as a pretext for emergency powers via the Enabling Act. His regime thrived on relentless propaganda, mass rallies, oppressive laws, and paramilitary terror from the SA and SS. This fusion of legal subversion, personality cult, and violent repression became his blueprint. Joseph Stalin consolidated power in the Soviet Union through ruthless internal maneuvering. As general secretary, he strategically placed loyalists throughout the party structure. His rule was defined by brutal purges, staged show trials, and the Great Terror, a campaign of repression that claimed millions of lives. Propaganda painted Stalin as the infallible father of nations. His image was ubiquitous, fostering a cult of personality. Stalin's methods highlight the critical importance of controlling institutions, manipulating the legal system, and using pervasive fear as a tool of state control. Benito Mussolini's rise in Italy also capitalized on national crisis. Post-World War I instability and social unrest provided fertile ground for his fascist party. The infamous March on Rome in 1922 led to his appointment as prime minister, a pivotal moment in Italy's slide into dictatorship. Mussolini cultivated a powerful cult of personality, presenting himself as Il Duce, the embodiment of Italian strength. His regime relied on violent black shirt squads, restrictive laws, and a tightly controlled media. Violence and intimidation, coupled with grand nationalist rhetoric, dismantled democratic freedoms. Vladimir Putin's ascent in post-Soviet Russia mirrors historical patterns. Initially seen as a source of stability, he quickly consolidated power. He manipulated elections, altered constitutional limits, and used state resources to reward allies and silence critics. Putin's government expertly uses propaganda to project an image of strength and restore national pride. Independent media and political opponents face harassment, exile, or worse. This modern approach echoes earlier dictatorship's suppression tactics, albeit with a polished contemporary veneer. Kim Jong-un inheriting power in North Korea represents the extreme end of totalitarianism. His regime maintains control through absolute isolation, pervasive propaganda, and brutal punishment for dissent. The cult of personality around the Kim dynasty is deeply institutionalized. Images of the leader dominate public and private life. This relentless propaganda, combined with state-sanctioned terror, ensures no alternative narratives can emerge. North Korea stands as a chilling warning of total state control. Idi Amin's brutal rule in Uganda underscores the role of military force. Seizing power in a 1971 coup, Amin governed through terror. His regime was infamous for systematic purges and widespread human rights abuses. Amin's display of military regalia and self-aggrandizing propaganda projected a larger-than-life image. Yet, his actions sowed terror, demonstrating how military power can be used to crush a population. Robert Mugabe's transformation in Zimbabwe, from liberation hero to autocrat, shows power concentration through deceit. Initially celebrated, Mugabe gradually dismantled democratic institutions. His re-elections became increasingly autocratic. He used state propaganda to maintain a heroic image, manipulated laws to extend his tenure, and deployed security forces to intimidate opponents. This deliberate erosion of norms turned Zimbabwe into a state controlled by one unaccountable leader. In Syria, Bashar al-Assad inherited a dictatorship and entrenched it further. Facing Arab Spring protests in 2011, his government responded with extreme violence. The regime used chemical weapons, mass arrests, and targeted killings. A tightly controlled state media narrative justified these actions as necessary for national security. Assad maintains a fragile grip through legal manipulation that criminalizes dissent and justifies brutal measures. Jair Bolsonaro's rhetoric in Brazil, promising order and fighting corruption, adopted authoritarian populism. His tenure featured controversial policies and inflammatory statements undermining democratic norms. He attacked the press and questioned electoral integrity. Bolsonaro implemented policies restricting environmental protections and indigenous rights. While operating within a democratic framework, his style pushed Brazil towards mirroring the authoritarian playbook in subtle, dangerous ways. Yoweri Museveni's long rule in Uganda since 1986 exemplifies gradual authoritarian creep. Initially credited with ending violence, Museveni manipulated constitutional amendments, removing term limits. His regime relies on patronage and suppressing opposition. Strategic use of military and security services ensures rigged democratic processes. This reinforces that control is maintained not just by overt violence, but by systematically co-opting legal and institutional frameworks. Analyzing these dictators reveals a terrifyingly consistent playbook. These are not isolated incidents, they are common mechanisms of control, now alarmingly visible in other contexts, including contemporary American politics. This is the critical warning we must heed. Systematic propaganda is a recurring strategy. From Hitler's rallies to Stalin's imagery, Mussolini's displays, or Putin's curated strength, each regime mastered shaping perception. Propaganda elevates the leader to mythic status and demonizes enemies, dissidents, minorities, foreign influences. State-controlled media becomes a tool for consolidating power, enforcing a single narrative. Legal manipulation is another critical tactic. Emergency powers, abolished term limits, suspended rights. These leaders turned legal institutions into instruments of autocracy. The Nazi Enabling Act legalized dictatorship. Stalin used show trials to eliminate rivals. Modern regimes engineer reforms that incrementally dismantle checks and balances. This is insidious. It disguises the erosion of liberty as lawful governance. Violence and intimidation are core to authoritarian strategies. Paramilitary forces, secret police, state security instill fear. From the SA, SS to the NKVD, North Korea's purges, or violence in Uganda and Syria, physical coercion ensures dissent is met with deadly force. This climate of fear discourages opposition, making obedience the path of least resistance. Cultivating a cult of personality is essential. Carefully constructed imagery, orchestrated events, pervasive media elevate the leader to near-mythical status. This personalizes power and links the state's fate to the leader's infallibility. Nuremberg rallies, Soviet portraits, North Korean images, this phenomenon creates pervasive loyalty underpinning authoritarian rule. Finally, suppressing dissent defines these regimes. Eliminating freedoms of speech, press, assembly, and opposition silences alternative voices. Concentration camps, secret police, arbitrary imprisonment, political purges form the backbone. This guarantees challenges are difficult to organize and met with swift, brutal retribution. The situation in America today presents unsettling, alarming parallels. While democratic elections and institutional checks remain, many observers see clear signs of subversion. Critics note that while elections occur, structures like gerrymandering, the Electoral College, and voter suppression distort the popular will. America's electoral system feels increasingly like a relic, a cosmetic democracy where the appearance of choice masks centralized power. Under Donald Trump, many authoritarian playbook elements became starkly visible. His repeated attacks on the free press, disparagement of opponents, and efforts to delegitimize elections echo earlier dictators. Just as authoritarians exploited crises, Trump's rhetoric framed dissent as unpatriotic and the media as the enemy, a tactic reminiscent of Stalin's enemies of the state and Hitler's propaganda against perceived subversives. Trump's policy maneuvers, extreme immigration restrictions, politicizing justice, appointing loyalists, mirror legal manipulation in historical regimes. His attempts to rewrite norms and bypass accountability resonate with Mussolini and Mugabe, who reshaped legal structures for elite interests. What seems like political theater can dismantle democratic safeguards from within. This is a critical threat, not mere politics. Cosmetic democracy perfectly describes a system where democratic forms persist, but substance is drained by power concentration. In America, the Electoral College is a prime example. Originally a compromise, it now allows candidates to win without the popular vote majority, as in 2000 and 2016. This structural flaw undermines the principle of equal votes, sidelining the majority's will. It is a critical failure of the system. The Swiss model of direct democracy offers a poignant contrast. Citizens frequently engage through referenda and initiatives, voting on major policies. This direct influence maintains tangible citizen power. The Swiss Federal Council, representing a broad coalition, illustrates power sharing as a bulwark against authoritarianism. While challenging, its emphasis on active participation and diffuse power is a living testament to genuine democracy. For many Americans, the gradual slide toward authoritarian practices is an existential threat. As institutions weaken, public trust erodes. When elites manipulate legal systems and control narratives through propaganda, liberty and free expression are imperiled. History offers a stark warning. Complacency in the face of creeping authoritarianism leads to swift, devastating consequences. This is an urgent call to action. The dangers of authoritarianism are global. The strategies of historical dictators are a cautionary blueprint for undermining democracy everywhere. As nationalism and populism rise, the stakes are critically high. Erosion of democracy in one nation has ripple effects, destabilizing global norms and emboldening other autocrats. The world is watching. From Switzerland, where democracy is a daily experience, the contrast with the US is stark and disheartening. Americans prided themselves on democratic heritage, but the signs are unmistakable. Centralized power, distorted elections, suppressed dissent. America risks sliding into a model where an elite few are insulated from public scrutiny. This is an alarming trajectory. The parallels with historical dictators are not hyperbole. They are a critical warning. The cult of personality, the propaganda barrage, the strategic use of legal and extra-legal measures to silence opposition. The pattern is clear. Authoritarian regimes throughout history use this playbook to subvert democracy. There is growing, urgent concern that these tactics are being replicated today. In the face of these challenges, the call to action is urgent, critical, and non-negotiable. Preserving democracy demands not just vigilance, but decisive engagement from citizens and institutions. Americans must demand accountability, insist on transparency, and defend constitutional safeguards for free and fair elections. apathy is not an option when representative government is at risk. The narrative of America's current political trajectory, a democracy appearing intact but hollowed out by internal manipulation and authoritarian tendencies, cannot be ignored. The lessons of history, drawn from the blood-soaked experiences of Hitler, Stalin, Mussolini, Putin, Kim Jong-un, Idi Amin, Mugabe, Assad, Bolsonaro, and Museveni, scream a warning across the centuries. Authoritarianism doesn't announce itself with fanfare. It creeps in like poison, eroding freedom drop by drop, lie by lie, law by law. This is a critical emergency. Each of these regimes, in its brutal choreography of oppression, demonstrated how propaganda becomes truth, how legal manipulation becomes justice, how violence becomes order, how personality cults become worship, and how the systematic suppression of dissent becomes silence. The silence of the grave. This is the terrifying potential future if we fail to act. For Americans, the parallels aren't just unsettling, they're terrifying. They're a five-alarm fire in a democracy already choking on smoke. The present moment doesn't just demand democratic engagement, it demands democratic resurrection. It demands that Americans wake up from their slumber before they wake up in chains. This is an urgent, critical warning. Real democracy is not a museum piece gathering dust. It's a living, breathing organism that dies without constant care. The Swiss system proves citizens can be architects of their destiny. But America? America clings to the rotting corpse of an 18th century system, the Electoral College, gerrymandering, voter suppression, while calling it democracy. It's like calling a skeleton a living person. This is a critical failure demanding immediate reform. A world watches in horror as the United States, once the lighthouse of liberty, becomes a cautionary tale. History warns us that dictatorships are built brick by brick, law by law, lie by lie. Today's emergency measures become tomorrow's permanent chains. Today's temporary restrictions become tomorrow's eternal silence. This is the alarming path America is on. The choice before America is not just clear, it's stark, it's binary, it's existential. Either fight now for the soul of democracy or watch it die in real time. This isn't just America's fight, it's humanity's fight. When democracy dies in America, it sends shockwaves through every free nation on earth. The global stakes are critically high. The time for half measures is over. The time for polite discourse is over. The time for hoping someone else will act is over. History will not forgive those who stood by while democracy burned. History will not forgive those who chose comfort over courage, silence over action, complicity over resistance. This is your moment of truth. America, your house is on fire. Every day you wait, every excuse you make, every time you say someone else will handle it, democracy dies a little more. The authoritarian playbook is being executed in real time, page by bloody page, and you're watching it happen like it's entertainment. This is a critical emergency demanding immediate, widespread civic engagement. Wake up, stand up, speak up. Your children will ask you what you did when democracy was under attack. Your grandchildren will study this moment in history class. What will your answer be? That you were too busy, too tired, too afraid? The time to act is now. The moment to act is now. Not tomorrow, not next week, not next year. Now. Call your representatives. March in the streets. Organize. Educate. Make your voice heard until it echoes in the halls of power. Democracy is not a spectator sport. It's a contact sport, and you're being called to the field. Demand accountability. Demand transparency. Demand electoral reform. Demand justice. Stop the slide into authoritarianism. Stop the erosion of your rights. Fight for the soul of your republic before it's too late. The price of freedom is eternal vigilance, and the bill has come due. Pay it with your voice, your vote, your action, or pay it with your freedom. The future is watching. History is watching. Your children are watching. The ghosts of every freedom fighter who died for democracy are watching. Don't let them down. Don't let democracy down. Don't let yourself down. The time is now. The cause is just. The fight is yours. Act now to defend democracy. Act now to reform the system. Act now to hold those accountable who would dismantle your republic. Because tomorrow may be too late. Impeach Trump today. Impeach Taco today.